The Matchless Altar of the Soul by Edgar L. Larkin. Chapter, Impressive Thought Forms of All Antiquity. The very base of all signs and symbolism from the remotest times until the present in cave temples, tent tabernacles, in the depths of wilderness or desert, in shrines and temples of marble and granite, in labyrinths and holy of holies, in pyramid, cathedral, and church, and sarcophagi and sepulchres, and the fact of pre-existence before the birth and continued existence after the death of the body of that central mystery of the ages, the human soul. The mystic descent of the soul into matter is the base of all occult things since the beginning of engraved and drawn signs on bark, papyrus, or stone, on pillar, pilaster, pylon, and temple. The soul is the center of all humanity in its devious career on earth. It took up its cross and entered matter. What is known exoterically as the Christ idea is the descent of the soul into matter and return to its central source, the soul of the universe, the soul divine. Every mystery from before Meroe, Memphis, Jerusalem, and Eleusis to the latest convocation in a church or Masonic lodge is a mystery of the soul. Innumerable signs, drawings of symbols, and mystic figures of crosses, triangles, circles, squares, cubes, and globes, also winged globes, double triangles, circles within triangles, and triangles within circles. These one and all relate to the divinity spark, known to be deep within the inner consciousness of man. Man has ever sensed this and then expressed the thought in symbols. Centuries before what we call history began, man became aware that he is a soul inhabiting a body. How he became aware, whether by centuries of observation of psychic mysteries or happenings, or by direct revelation or communication by those who had left the body, may never be known. But when history begins to cast flickering and fitful rays into the gloom of primeval ages, these faint beams of light fall on the fact that man is a soul. From secret traditions, it appears that ancient men and women of wisdom were better aware of facts of the soul than modern men and women. The race has surely lost some kind of word of wisdom. Every ancient race, rising to the art of writing, has recorded mournful traditions of loss of some precious element of knowledge. It is some mysterious word that's been lost. Before history began, a search for the lost word developed. To the initiates, it's known as a quest or the quest. I have proof in my possession that the quest, the search, is increasing. Modern man is now in renewed activity. He is exploring with the earnestness of a detective, and the slightest fact of the soul does not escape scrutiny. Since the loss of the divinity word of the soul, no activity of search has been greater than at present, as I write. All ancient Aditan temples, such as those of Thebes, Tintira, Memphis, Heliopolis, Jerusalem, Ephesus, Eleusis, Crete, and Athens, seem to be reanimate and revealing archaic wisdom of the soul. The winged Hermes with wings upon his ankle is, as it were, the visible symbol of feet beautiful on the heights, over whose summits, over the world, he is bearing the mystic caduceus, the very symbol of the soul. A white triangle descending low into a dark triangle is the archaic symbol of descent of spirit into matter. The white half of a swastika, joined to the lower half in the black, is the symbol of the soul descending from realms supernal to matter. And triangles within circles tell us that the soul has entered and been enclosed in the body. This is the way of Hermes, the secret of the ages, the precursor of the idea of birth and then rebirth, that is, death of the body. This is the axis of revolution of man on earth. The axis is the soul, and the turning is its liberation. The Christ idea is an axis. One of the most remarkable books of modern times is that entitled The World's 16 Crucified Saviors, for it shows as clearly as day that all great religions of antiquity revolved around the idea of an exponent of the soul. Thus, the Christ idea of the ages is in reality the soul idea. And every church and temple on earth ought now to revive the ancient mystery drama of the Christus. The ancients had vast open-air theaters seating thousands with free admissions, expenses kept up by the state. The most profound mysteries, so far as their exoteric portions were concerned, were played by the most exquisite expressional actors and to the multitudes. But the Christos, or Christos idea, was at the base of the dramas. That is, the soul was basic and central, and should be now made central to all, especially to children. How different it all was in ancient Greece. The priest had front rows of seats in the national theaters. The plays were about the soul, and the higher rites of secret mysteries to which the public was not admitted, the highly occult philosophy and refined psychology of the flight of the soul from the realms of pre-existent souls and descent into matter, was taught for centuries. The central idea, although somewhat obscured now, is that all degrees, rites, signs, and most beautiful symbols in the highest occult arcane and esoteric parts of modern, really very ancient masonry. The thread of gold of the continuous soul has not been severed from the days of Dionysius, nor from Hermes in the distant past. Through all vicissitudes to the living present, the center of every religion, of every rite, of every mystery is the Christ idea. And this is the descent of soul into matter, the first half, and the other half is escape and flight to the original home. This is the inner history of man expressed in 38 words. Here in Los Angeles is a temple almost like those of antiquity, exceedingly near ancient truth. The First Baptist Church organization has its home in the magnificent Temple Auditorium. This is a colossal modern theater building with immense stage, elaborate scenery, and a wilderness of many-colored electric lights. Dramas, operas, moving pictures are on daily and nightly during weekdays, but all services of the church are held on Sundays. A large baptistry is directly beneath the stage floor. When people are ready to be buried with Christ in baptism, one of the most exquisitely beautiful, harmonic, and impressive ceremonies on earth, the floor is removed, and the lustrator, so called on the banks of the river Elysus in Greece, descends into the water. The initiates follow and are completely buried as they should be to carry into modern times the true, venerable, and ancient symbol of purification, the life-sustaining, life-purifying, the blessed water. I have called those lustrated initiates, but if they could only see, that is, be illumined by the light that falls on the blessed way as revealed in secret rites, signs, and symbols, the symbols being for the purpose of conveying to the mind through the eye mighty secrets unlawful to write, print, or engrave in words, they would be rejoiced. Lustrations, submergence, immersion of a living human being beneath water is one of the most arcane, philosophic, esoteric, and beautiful signs of change deep within the soul ever performed. But if this form of Christ idea could be presented in elaborate dramas on the stage for months before lifting the floor, before actual lustration, the original word, how much more impressive would the final symbol, immersion, appear to all? For the soul expands in the play of mystery. The very voices calling in the wilderness call for lustration, the burial of sin beneath living waters in the baptism of the soul. For all symbols have to do with the soul. This is an important thought to memorize, and if thus treasured, its aid will be great in the comprehension of all literature of all ancient and classic ages. The people then knew more of the soul than we do now here in the 20th century. And I here assure the reader that the Christ idea, with all that these two wondrous words imply, reveal, and make known, this dominant idea, a term used by modern mentalists, is at the very base. The language of symbols is perhaps nearly as extensive as any complete language, say the English. Could all words the symbols mean, and as understood by initiates, be written in a lexicon, it would be perhaps half as large as the standard dictionaries, but they cannot all be published, as they are of secret orders. All rites of antiquity during many centuries BC in all enlightened nations were symbolized, not written in words. Suppose the reader could be shipwrecked on some mystic or enchanted isle in the mid-ocean, and upon exploration find that many signs were along the road, none of which he could understand, not having the hidden key to the meaning. He would be lonely indeed. But given the true key, then the island and all it contained would at once put on a new aspect. Thus in a church I saw an Egyptian winged globe over a window. Knowing that it is an archaic symbol of immortality, I thought of that and all it implied. I no longer thought of the sermon by a minister striving vainly to explain to texts in the scriptures of which he was totally ignorant. He knew nothing of the meaning, not having the symbolic master key to all Hebrew scriptures. Substitute the word school for stage, then all the world is a school, and all men students. An example, those who study. That is, do you wish to wear the wondrous seamless robe, the garment of wisdom? Go get the key. Study. That is, you do not wish to be 70 years in exile, nor 40 in the wilderness, nor do you have the slightest desire to descend into the abyss, that is, to bring Christ up from the dead. Romans 10:7. Oh, reader, if you only knew the meaning of that thing so great that it comes near being a science, namely symbology, if you do not already know, you would look upon the very interior of the Christ idea as one, if not the greatest dominating idea ever presented to the mind of man for serious thought. But the deepest psychology is involved in the symbols of the Holy Grail, the lost world, the ceaseless quest, and the real meaning of that highly esoteric symbol, the cross. The current explanation of all these, retailed by current expounders, now come under the accurate title, the word mechanical. That is, would you desire to see the unfed light glowing on the very altar of the soul, go secure the lamp whose mystic light actually induces the inner glow. In short, study your soul. Keys to the meaning of symbols, the early divinity language of man, before writing in science, will greatly aid in the fascinating search, the quest. Real mystery of human existence. The earth revolves mechanically on its axis, and humanity revolves around the soul. Man has ever thought of his soul. The reader is at liberty to call it by any other name, but it is like central in the telephone service of a city. Every materialist must inevitably encounter this set truth. Every sacred mystery of antiquity, every rite of initiation, every imparting of wisdom to the candidate at low breath for 100 departed centuries was wisdom of the soul, with foregleams and premonitions of its continued existence beyond dissolution of the body. All occult science of the ages has been and now is of the soul. If not, it would not be occult. The word means hidden. It is the subconscious, but capable in times of stress of rising into consciousness, into the active, working personality with majesty and power. Now, reader, when it rises, if it suddenly rises to manifestation in your case, so prepare self that it will not smite with just and withering, blasting, blistering force. Some call the just, equitable, and pure monitor this striking and suddenly smiting power conscience. The sure scar or indelible mark left on the personality, the ego, the self, is the appalling wound, remorse. I thought here to attempt a description of the mind effects of terrific remorse, but find myself unable to summon words of sufficient force. A description of the nameless horrors of that overpowering thing, remorse, is beyond me. The ancients early discovered the effects of remorse, and the wise and good of the race have warred against this most dreaded of all mind effects. Let the reader fail not to stand in awful dread in the very presence of the word remorse. Since this scientific proposition, remorse is the effect of the soul in the act of executing your own judgment. You cause the remorse, you cause every effect on your soul. You make the bed in which you must recline. You build the house, brick by brick, course after course, in which you must live. You cannot move to some other home. You must live in the house builded by self. And the sooner you act upon this set and rigid law, discovered many thousands of years ago, the better. The course of the soul is the base of the arcane mysteries. And then they built the labyrinth at the cost of millions of our money for the sole purpose of imparting this one point or fact in the career of the soul. Reader, drop all light reading, all trivialities, all useless, harmful studies, if they are useless, and study the soul. Only one study draws near to this one of power, mathematics. The soul first, then interminable numbers. Study soul and numbers until lost in fascinating and exalted thoughts, then make the well-known sign of infinity. Soul, mind, life, nature, numbers are so intensely fascinating that the regulation 10 hours a day for study passes before you are aware of the flight. If you have not sensed the passing of the 10 hours, go on to 16 or 18. That is, work out your own salvation in fear and trembling, fearing that you will even hear the fearful words remorse, spoken in a whisper, in your ear, through a little wicket door in the gate of a chamber, beneath the level of the surface of the earth in the labyrinth. In the Cretan labyrinth, they expected to meet a terrific Minotaurus, a destroying monster. But as horrific as was the devourer in subterranean chambers, its mien was mild in comparison with remorse. It might have been is a phrase of remorse. Be good. Begin now. This is fair warning. How does this saying sound to you? Nothing but leaves, or this, chained to a corpse. The dead self, killed by neglect, the fearful thing, the ignoring of the still, small, plaintive, pleading voice, the speaking of the soul. Do you wish, when traversing parts of passageway in the labyrinth of initiation that leads by hundreds of doors, each opening into a chamber, to find them all closed and locked? Total neglect of the soul automatically closes doors to its chambers. Establish an altar of the soul. Pour upon it thy highest gift of pure thoughts. That is, treat your soul as an ever-present, loving companion. Sealed chambers will surely open, and you may enter, it may be, strange rooms, of whose existence within you have not been all along aware. Do you wish sealed chambers in your soul? Or unused, this is, latent faculties? How wonderful the science of salvation, this unlocking of long-time hermetically sealed rooms within, beyond the veil. How to set up the altar of the soul. This is the capital problem of the ages. The process is one of mind, pure, trained, and experienced in exalted meditation. The better way to prepare self to hear the voice of the soul is to go to a still place, literally going into a chamber of silence. The act of summoning the latent powers of the soul was well understood by votaries of the ancient mysteries. There have been times when the mind processes of introspections peering within was better understood than at present. So great perfection has been attained in the past in this supremely important interior exploration that the loss of power is as mysterious as the wondrous long-lost word. Literature teems with this term, the lost word. See this. The fact is, the power of speaking to the soul has been lost to a few who have kept this secret during all these darkened centuries. It has always been known to the few. The grand, omnific soul word never has been entirely lost. Living adept men have the power, that is, the word now. This grand, supreme, omnific word I have symbolized under the title Matchless Altar of the Soul, and compared the altar to the cube in ancient temples and labyrinths, one sacred Melchizedek pyramid and temple cubit on a side. Now, reader, cultivate thy soul so that this beautiful cubic altar will glow in the darkest hour as a diamond. This has another name, self-culture, and another title, know thyself. You will doubtless observe that the grand teachers, philosophers, and hierophants of remote antiquity had made this all-important discovery, this real culture of the soul. So valuable was soul culture thought to be that they erected the costliest buildings, temples, and labyrinths in its honor, and cut and carved in solid stones the words, know thyself. These were cut over gates and portals. All who entered had to pass under the omnific words. To them, the words meant far more than they do to us. Here and now, in a busy commercial age, when the voice of self is overcome by its roar. But man must return to the soul, and now, in the midst of a world war, my letters from persons making inquiry regarding the soul and its probable destiny are increasing, not only in numbers, but in sincerity, earnestness, and pathetic appeals for something known to be true. They want to know. The portion of archaic secret wisdom called for centuries secret doctrine. I wish to cautiously give out now in this article is the fixed, set, rigid, and variable law of nature, karma. This has been made plain to humanities students during at least 85,000 years of man's career on earth. This priceless knowledge came by spoken words sounding in the soul, the ego, the self, by materialization, by automatic writings, and by other methods during these thousands of years. This age is one of materialism, but dawn is coming. I believe that sufficient people will hear the voice of the soul within 20 years to have influence on a sordid human race. As ye sow, so shall ye reap, is a law of nature. All humans are in the clutch of karma. It does not seem possible that this law of nature can be much longer carefully obscured, so well suppressed that the people cannot hear of the very thing that directly affects their souls. The base of this chapter of outgiving from this summit, this mountain peak, is karma. The poem, I, myself, and me, we three, here gladly inserted, is one of the most beautiful and awe-inspiring productions in all literature. The author does not give his name, but one having once set foot on the path, the way of attainment, the road traversed by a pilgrim, the perfect way, the labyrinth of initiation, is well aware that the author is a hermetic adept, that is, he knows. He has been led, lured, and also gently urged through every passage, every crypt and chamber in the labyrinth, either as Arsinoe in Egypt or at Crete in Greece. He has certainly seen the very light of the soul. I am the best pal that I ever had. I like to be with me. I like to sit and tell myself things confidently. I often sit and ask me, if I shouldn't or I should. And I find that my advice to me is always pretty good. I never got acquainted with myself till here of late. I find myself a belly chum. I treat me simply great. I talk with me and walk with me and show me right and wrong. I never knew how well myself and me could get along. I never try to cheat me. I'm truthful as can be. No matter what may come or go, I'm on the square with me. It's great to know yourself and have a pal that's all your own. To be such company for yourself, you're never left alone. You'll try to dodge the masses, and you'll find the crowd's a joke if you only treat yourself as well as you do other folk. I've made a study of myself, compared me with the lot, and I've finally concluded I'm the best friend that I've got. Just get together with yourself and trust yourself with you, and you'll be surprised how well yourself will like you if you do. Author unknown. If the reader will learn this word for word, memorize the occult words, repeat them at the instant of awakening in the morning, what a blessed, holy guide will be near all the day long. Get well acquainted with your soul. Do this, and you will never wound nor give it a trace of pain. Surely, reader, you will be good simply because you desire it. For it is now as well known scientifically we must be good as the laws of mathematics. Think of it. If you're in middle life and have not yet become acquainted with your soul, get acquainted, beginning at this instant. If you are, say, 50 years of age, the time will be longer than if you had commenced at 20. But begin now.